Either I'm prepped or I'm not, right?
Well, it's all good. All right, what's up going on, everyone? I just pushed the broadcast live on Zoom. All right, I'm gonna go live here on LinkedIn too. All right, what's going on, everyone? Hope you're having an amazing start to your week. If you are on LinkedIn and you're joining us, you know what I just realized? I think I'm gonna have to change the speaker, because if the speaker is here, then nobody will be able to hear you. This is just the beauty of it, you know? Here, I'm just gonna change the MacBook Pro, okay.
All right, Jen, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. All right, what's going on, everyone? Thank you, Jen, for joining me today. What's going on? We've got about 17, 18. We've got a lot of people joining the Zoom right now. What's going on, everyone? Whenever you join the Zoom or even on LinkedIn, if you want to drop in your company name, your role, Cynthia says, what's up, Jen? Just let us know kind of where you're joining from. We'll do our best to get at a lot of your questions. I'm gonna, let's see, pop on LinkedIn now, make sure everything's working over here. Video live. Yeah. All right, cool. All right. So we're live. We're good everywhere. All right, Jen. So we're going to talk a little bit of Rev Ops today. We're going to talk, not just Rev Ops. I think we'll talk about a lot of different topics. Oh, hold on. Let me mute myself. All right. Mute there. Okay. All right. So we should be good now at this point. What's going on, everyone who's on LinkedIn? We've got 20 plus people joining in. Drop your comments in here. We're going to talk a little sales excellence, a little sales operations today. So if you guys have any trouble hearing me or hearing Jen, let me know. What's going on, Karen from the Crown Plaza in Greenville? Love it. All right, cool. So, Jen, I think what we can do, and it's interesting, I want to start with the women's boot camp. So you found that's the first time that we had interacted.
Yeah.
In that event. So tell, and I'll just tell everyone, for me, I put a post up this morning too, just about everything that's going on. And, I think sometimes it can be really difficult or nervous to know what to say in these situations. And I think the reason that the post you put up this morning kind of resonated with me in particular was that event. And again, because I've been in sales my whole career, that event was the first event in my entire life ever that I was the only man at an event, right? Literally out of, 40 plus women. And then at the dinner afterwards, it was the speakers, all women and me. And I think that was one of the first times where I was so cognizant of how different that scenario was from every other scenario that I had been in my sales career. And it really made me realize, again, particularly about, like women in sales and women in revenue operations, just how much how much as white male sales leaders, you just get almost like used to this being the norm. And when you're not in that norm, it's just like a completely different mindset. And that for me was really, and that was what, 2016, it really opened my eyes to, my responsibility or, how to be proactive about addressing these situations, because I'm sure I'd been at many dinners where there was one female sales leader or maybe two, and not had the forethought or the thought to think about that, and think about it. And so, I was really glad when you kind of called that out, but I just wanted to, kind of comment on that. And then, Jen, what was your kind of thoughts when you were, interacting or reading it, or what are your thoughts on, that topic and anything that you want to talk about what's going on right now as well too?
Yeah, no, about that article, I just loved that you called out specifically, the language used when you're, presenting to a group, when there are women that are part of that group, that, changing up that language and being more inclusive in what you're doing. So that's what struck me about the article, and then, made me want to follow you just to be able to learn more. But I was looking into it in the first place. I mean, I think I Googled something, right? Because I'm used to being the only woman, a sales leader, right, in the room, and was just looking for things about that, like knowledge, how to handle different scenarios and ways to sort of engage more so that we can have a more inclusive environment. And that's how I stumbled upon your article. So I've been, a fan ever since.
It was really eye-opening. I mean, and I think this is kind of brought to light, on the race side in particular, that as a white male in particular, it can be, it's almost nervous about what to say or what to do. And I think for a long time, I was talking to my wife this weekend about it, and she asked me, she's like, Jake, are you going to post anything? I was like, I don't know what I'd say. And then as I thought more about it, and I looked at what, that doesn't do any good either, right? Like if this is an issue, same thing as, again, making sure that we're more cognizant about, females in the sales rank. If someone like me doesn't say anything, then it's not excusing it, but it's certainly not helping to make it better. And I feel like it's all our responsibility in our sales community that candidly is extremely underrepresented for, people that might look like me to be a part of this. And I just couldn't, there's just not, it just can't, there has to be a point when you have to say something, and I think even, for you too, as a female, it can probably be difficult as well to comment on things that are happening as well.
Well, I mean, I commented on one of our sales pros from the Rev Genius yesterday had posted something about it, and I had commented, something about prayers and stay safe. And someone responded to me and said, thoughts and prayers aren't going to do it for you. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I went to go look at him, and he called out a video on Reddit where early this morning, I watched this video that was just so brutal, like crying, like brutal. And I was just like, I can't not say anything. I'm like, you're absolutely right, dude. I'm so sorry. It takes now, as far as this has gone and how much just how awful it is, it's got to be more about action, setting a standard that we're going to be a more diverse business community in general, and that we're going to teach our children to have the values that, everyone is important. And I think that's a really just important thing to know right now is, you can play lip service all day, but unless you're doing something about it, then you're not really doing anything, right?
Yeah. And I think, Jen, what you just said, that fear of commenting, right? That you're not going to say the right thing. And I was probably more nervous to post this morning than I can remember in recent memory, for that exact fear of, but am I going to say the right thing? But the key is, it's okay. Like, it's okay if you're trying. And I think, to your point, someone called out to you, hey, hopes and prayers, but then it just helped. It didn't stop you. And I think that's what I want everyone in our revenue and sales community, is that it's okay if you don't know exactly what to say, talking to people of color about it, talking to people, again, when you're trying to solve the issue about women in sales, talking to women about it, how they feel. I think, sometimes that can be the most difficult conversation to just start it. And so, I applaud you, Jen, too, for, putting yourself out there and being a part of it. And, to everyone listening, I highly encourage, we've got 30 plus people on Zoom, another 20 plus people on LinkedIn Live. I encourage all of you out there to, say something, right? Show support, offer, an opportunity to help those out there that, or at least have a conversation, right? And I think that's for a lot of people, if you don't feel like protesting, that's fine. We're making a donation to the ACLU. That's the way that, for me, that's what feels best, is I want to help to, impact long-term change. And I think for everyone out there, no matter how you feel that you should participate, just doing something is what matters. And I think we've got to, especially on the sales side, I think we've got to be more cognizant of this. So, Jen, thank you for joining. I know that this is, and I know, and plus I posted this morning, so then I don't want that to monopolize your time either. So I think we'll jump into the sales stuff. And no, but you commented. So I was like, well, she commented.
Yeah.
So I'll feel more comfortable us spending some time on it. So tell me a little bit about what you're up to, Jen. And I think tell the audience who may or may not know you, tell them a little bit about what you're up to, and what you and your group are doing.
Sure. Yeah. So I was actually affected by the pandemic, right? And so laid off. And I had been doing consulting for a number of years, sort of on the side. Everyone's got a side hustle. So I had one, right? And decided that now is the time that I needed to go all in and really invest the time into doing more of that. And what I do with Sales 911 and our group is really bridge that gap between sales and marketing and customer success.
Okay.
So that when you're looking at the processes and evaluating the pipeline, really just identifying the leaks and the slippage, and I promise I'm not a plumber, and just really optimizing everything so that you're being as efficient as you can be to grow revenue, but also reduce churn, right? Right now, especially, this topic's important because everything really revolves around that customer buyer experience. So really looking at that with organizations and seeing where we could pull those levers to create better results. Oh, and a little bit about my background. I've been in sales for over 20 years. First full sales cycle rep, also, building sales development teams, leadership and marketing and partnership. And so I have a sort of a wide array of skills that I bring to the table that really allows me to be that problem solver and be quick to identify those gaps.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think this whole idea, revenue organization, sales and marketing working together is not a new concept by any stretch of the imagination. And I think a lot of, the interesting part is it's been talked about for so long that I feel like it's almost jumped the shark a little bit in terms of people are like, yes, we know. It's almost like they dismiss it. And what I feel like is, and I want to get your kind of take on best practices around how you think about this. But for me, a lot of this to me starts around compensation. That if you look at the way that marketing is compensated, sales development, and sales, it is not compensated with the buyer in mind. It is compensated to manage to micro parts in the process that neither encourage someone to actually do the research for the steps that happened before, or ensure that there's follow through, post whatever step you are, in marketing, I'm generating MQLs and SQLs and, maybe I'm compensated on revenue, maybe, right? The SDR, I'm compensated on SALs or SQOs or whatever you call them. And my job is to get as many of people over the finish line. Sales, and then going to the next, sales is compensated to close net new deals. And if they don't use the product, there's no penalty. And so I feel like whether it's sales and marketing of these different divisions, the issue I see is around this whole just complete lack of the we've optimized for efficiency for so much that it's efficient, it's simple, that the customer is the one who's feeling the pain, but the revenue orgs are as well too. And so what do you feel? And maybe we'll just start and we'll kind of go through it, but let's start with marketing and maybe sales or sales development. What are some best practices there that you think an organization that's trying to better align marketing and sales development or marketing sales can do to eliminate some of this, other than compensation, which may be out of many's control?
Yeah, I mean, obviously from marketing to sales development, you need a feedback loop, right? So you've got all these MQLs coming over and the sales development team is going out there and they're making the calls and stuff. If they're not the right fit and the MQLs they're not right, they need to be able to have that feedback loop to say, hey, these did not actually fit our target persona. This is what's wrong with them. And that gives you that ability to refine what your MQL should actually look like, right? But on the same respect, right? So if you're going to have a feedback loop there, you also need to have a feedback loop on sales. And so we've sent this over. Why did it not work out? And really dig into the data of that and make sure that the metrics are all entirely aligned, that what marketing is measured on makes sense to what sales development is measured on to sales. It's got to be a complete, loop, right? HubSpot calls it the flywheel. Outreach is talking more of a horizontal, process, but it's really looking into each step of the process and finding out if something is not working, why is it not working? And you do that with data and really understanding what those gaps are. I mean, that's what I would suggest. I don't know if you have any recommendations.
I think that's right. I think the key is that at least some of the gaps that I see are when companies even have or they have parts of this feedback loop. That we've got some questions that are starting to come in. So everyone, do me a favor. We're going to talk kind of the customer journey here and these different intersection points. And so if you have questions, and especially look, if you're on the front lines and you're like, what can I do better? Right? I've got a lot of advice for on the front lines, what I would be doing if I was in sales development or account growth. Jen's going to add a lot of her tactical advice too, but.
Oh, Jake, you got frozen. You're so frozen.
I'm like faking froze. I'm not like really froze.
Oh my goodness.
I'm here. I can see me. I don't know. If you guys can see me or hear me, let me know. Yeah, I think it might be you, Jen. All right, everyone can hear and see me. Jen, I'm not sure. All right, so we'll wait. Let's see if she comes back. All right, there you go, you're back. No, she's kind of back. All right, so I will start while we're waiting for Jen to get unfrozen. Okay, here we go. So I'm gonna jump into some of these questions. All right, Leland, thank you, I appreciate it. Matt Cameron, what's up, man? I'm moving for you. That's good. I'm glad. I'm always moving for you, Matt Cameron. All right. Jen is back. Jen's back.
Yes.
All right.
I'm back.
Good.
Sorry.
All right. You're fine. So what I was saying is that I think the issue is this constant battle of quantity over quality. That that I feel like revenue organizations over-index. If you think about it, should be a balance, right? It's always finding that perfect balance between and anchoring on the concept of effectiveness over efficiency. But I feel like in sales and marketing, for whatever reason, we love more. And so we kind of look for these different thresholds that don't always necessarily, align because of our quest for more. And so I think sometimes I see with the feedback loop that marketing or other organizations either won't accept it or will try to make the bar so low that there's not a lot that you can do. There's not a lot that you can do. There's a question in here from Lydia that I want to take. And Jen, I'm going to throw this to you.
Okay.
Has anyone thought about creating customer teams? So Lydia Sugarman, what's going on, Lydia? Creating customer teams that work together to develop, close, maintain customers, and share in team bonus program. So what are your thoughts?
I've made that suggestion a number of times, and really because, all of the tools and all of the effort we put in on the sales development side, right? What if you were trying to provide as much value when they were an actual customer? Then your churn would be less and you wouldn't have to worry about it so much because you were being proactive with making sure that the value was there for them, right? So having some metrics and measurements around churn and really honing in on where you can provide value. I think of it as like the revenue engine is like the marketing goes all the way around, right? Where they're constantly working. Whereas on the inside, you've got all the other revenue teams and make it like aligned around that buyer and customer journey. So if you're not providing value, how are you not expecting more churn, right?
But do you think though too, as a part of that though, like how many marketing departments, and I'll challenge, and by the way, put this in the comments, drop this in the chat or drop this on the comments on LinkedIn Live. How many marketing departments have a single KPI around customer churn? And the number is like shockingly low. Marketing is literally almost completely incentivized on net new. And this loop, I think, and so if you look at customer marketing, it's a joke. Customer marketing is like, hey, most customer marketing is referral campaigns to drive, again, net new leads. at the top of the funnel versus like taking care of, those groups, those groups.
Yeah, 100%. Or that one call right before the contract is due or it's time to renew, and how's everything going? That one call isn't going to cut it if you don't have like constant like interaction regularly, and do the surveys, the NPS scores, and really understand where people are at. Then you can't be surprised when you have a churn. You just
I just
no, I don't. I make the recommendation all the time that churn be part of the metrics for marketing. And they usually say no.
Well, it's again, we like shiny new things, right? And I'll have conversations with larger companies sometimes that might not have a sales development team yet. The sales team might not be doing it. And so I'll ask them a very simple question. I'll say, where do you think the fastest, largest amount of revenue comes from? Outbound, inbound, or current customers? Every single CEO intuitively says current customers. Then I go, great, why don't we go solve that problem first? Why don't we go create a growth engine in our account management or customer success group, and then we'll go solve outbound. There are so many startups today, Series A, Series B, Series C, that could crush their annual number if they did 0 outbound after they've got to a certain customer and only focused on growing their current customers and did inbound. But again, it's the venture capital mentality a little bit as well too, that the venture capital mentality is the Aaron Ross mentality of predictable revenue. If you just create new leads, the engine takes care of itself. So we have completely over-indexed to this mindset of create new leads and everything takes care of itself, which, by the way, there is truth in that, but there are also easier ways to generate revenue too. And I feel like that's why I love, like at Scaled, whenever we do account growth consulting, it's my favorite because the bar is so low. Like literally we can show a lift in 30 days. In 30 days, we can literally show a lift. They're like, we were predicting 110% net growth year over year. I'm like, you should be shooting for 200%. This is your first year of working with a customer. This is land and expand. So I feel like we've got to make that focus.
No, I mean, 100%. And, John Barrow said something the other day that agility was the new differentiator, right? And when you think about RevOps and you compare it to like the DevOps movement, where everything was about speed to market, right? So taking development and combining it with the operations and focusing on
agile.
Speed.
That was like the agile movement.
Exactly. And so if you take that and you expand that into RevOps, right? And that's what you're doing. You're able to gain the speed, gain the responsiveness, but also do it to your customers as well, so that you're able to grow faster by really engaging all of the people on your team and listening to all the voices, right? And all the, the great ideas, being innovative.
So Lydia, we took a long time to answer your question, but to Lydia Sugarman's question, the answer is no. People are not creating customer teams. Let me tell you what it was called. Sales 2005. Okay. Sales 2005 was you generate your own business, you close your own leads, and you manage your own accounts. That is an amazing customer experience. I have a feeling we're going to go back to some version of this, especially at the enterprise level, because we're leaving too much money and too much opportunity on the table, and customers are going to demand some level of continuity. They're not going to put up with like shitty handoffs. They're not going to put up with it because there's too many alternatives and so many lookalike products. And G2 will expose people who have, major flaws, et cetera. So, but unfortunately, Lydia, I think what Jen and I are both saying is that companies don't have it because we've over what do you call siloed roles and incentives. We haven't created incentives for people to break down the silos either.
Well, yeah, it's over engineered. I remember back when I was selling, green screen software, that's the model. The 2005 model is what you're calling it, but that you're selling, you're taking the account, and then you're managing the account and really staying in touch, because at that time, it wasn't SaaS, it was maintenance, and your maintenance was so much, it was really important that you got that money at the end of the year. But the beauty of SaaS was the recurring revenue. So if you want the recurring revenue to keep on coming and not be concerned about the churn, then you need to focus on making sure that entire experience is like fantastic, not just, sales development providing the value, and then as soon as they're a customer, like,
see ya.
Good luck. Yeah.
That's it. And that's it. I said something was it 2 weeks ago? I was talking to Richard Harris, and then we've got a really, really good question from, all right, I apologize in advance. If you guys listen to my lives, you know I'm really bad with names. Rishabha Sharma. Tell me if I pronounced that correct. Correct me if I did not. But what I said to Richard is that the comp plan that we're suggesting to some of our clients that are more forward thinking is that sales compensation should be X%, and we could even say 80% or 90%, tied to the sale, and 10 to 20% tied to the time that they reach power usage. Because at the end of the day, that is the company's goal. The company's goal is to create power users, not create signed contracts, power users. And that if every single person focuses on that and focuses on power usage, then we're aligned, right? So sales knows I'm not going to get, if I shove this deal through, I'm only going to get 80% of my comp, right? And a lot of sales leaders or salespeople are like, that's not fair.
You're frozen again, Jake.
Well, if you guys can hear me, let me know. I'm not frozen to me, but it could be me. But that's it. So I'm a big fan of these ideas about comp plans, better aligning to usage. All right. Karen says she can hear me. Jen, I think it might be on your end. So Allison, what's up, Allison Bunker? How are you? I hope you're doing amazing, holding it down in Las Vegas. Katie De Leon has a question for us.
Okay.
Do you think, all right, you're back?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so Katie De Leon, do you think there's a difference between the role of customer success and customer marketing? The best ways I've addressed this in the past is to have company level metrics aligned around churn, referenceability, customer saturation, etc. So all groups are accountable in driving toward these goals. So she's a CRO, and that's how she's done it. And Katie, I'm with you. And just so you know, having been a VP of sales and success, three times, I would never, ever, 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 ever take a CRO role if I didn't own sales and customer success. Because I need to be responsible for the customer journey, and I need to be responsible for it's when you segment these two that loop breaks. And so how do you think about, we talked a little bit about customer marketing. Like, how do you think what are maybe some tactics or things that you think customer marketing teams could use, Jen, to help, or what are some ways we've talked about marketing being able to help? What are some ways that you think marketing can help? Because I think that the roles are different. I think it's having a marketing person who's dedicated to customer success versus thinking that the customer success team is going to come up with, marketing or usage on their own. I think that they can, like you said, to give that feedback loop. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's about knowing your industry. So how is your product relevant to the industry, and being able to provide value on new ways to either use the product or ways to leverage it, and staying engaged with the customer, right? So, from a sales development standpoint, it's always about providing value. I firmly believe on the customer success side, it's still about providing value. They're already a customer. You know what software they're using. How much easier is it to help them? Look at software adoption, right? Are they using all the features in the software? Nobody ever uses all the features in the software.
No, just to validate that, Eloqua, the marketing automation, I think it's Eloqua or Pardot, one of those two, said that on average, one of the top 3 marketing automation tools, said that on average, people use 10% of its functionality.
I believe that. I believe that. So if let's say your focus is on getting more adoption, right? And you get more people within the company using the software, well, then churn's not going to be a problem, because you've got the more people you have on it, the easier of a decision it is to make, right? So the same thing with just different ways to provide value with webinars, just different things that will bring value to the customer and while they use your solution, I think is really a good way to go, and what I suggest to the people I work with.
That's super smart. Yeah. And I think that that's it. It's like if marketing's looking for ways, it's understanding those customer issues that are probably the same issues at the top of the funnel and like helping with a little bit of like product discovery or product marketing. I guess, yeah, product marketing should help with some of that, but that's amazing. And so, okay, I'm going to get to the question now. He corrected me. It is not, well, hold on. He just spelled his name again. So I can't, you got to tell me how you got to phonetically. So, but anyway, here's his question. He said, is there any solution to not lay off? So we're going to go a little left field here, but guys, this is, I like to take questions from the audience. You all are going through your own specific things, whatever that might be. So be selfish, ask questions in here, right? And I think this is a good one. So his question is there any solution to not lay off employees of an organization in light of the global coronavirus pandemic and rather support them financially according to the budget of the organization? And at least give them a little bit of sense of security, if not much. And then he's got a follow on, which is around companies being more employee centric. So we were talking about customer centric, and he's like talking about them being more employee centric. So what are your thoughts around kind of the way that companies are, like if we kind of flip, we're talking about the customer journey now, but if we look at the people that are serving those customers,
you're freezing again.
The revenue. So, all right.
My internet connection's strong, but you are frozen, dude.
I don't know. Jen keeps saying it's my internet. Is it my internet connection? Let me know, man. Let me know if my internet's freezing up. I'm consistently getting not me. So if not, see, all right. No, I'm not frozen. Good on your end. All right, good. Jen, I don't know what to tell you.
I can see you now. Yeah. I'm like, I have a good internet connection. I'm like, this never happens on Zoom.
I don't know. Yeah, I asked for the feedback. People, yeah. So tell me, what do you think? We can keep going at it. So tell me what you think. What are the things that you think someone can do, or an organization should do, or a revenue leader should do during like these types of times?
I think just like transparency, really, just be honest with your people. You can't. If things are looking tough and it looks like you're going to have to do layoffs, just say things are not looking good, so that nobody is caught off guard or, surprised, because that just gives them the ability to be like, okay, well, let me start looking for stuff. At least they've been transparent and they're trying to keep me. You can't be like, I'm trying to keep everyone on board and then, lay someone off the next day. That's just crap. You have to really just communicate. I mean, everybody knows it's rough. There's 40 million people unemployed. It sucks. But, if you're just honest, I think it's okay. Now, the helping people feel secure is another thing. I mean, if you're the type of company that really supports a culture that gives like psychological safety and has an open communication, just having open forums where people are talking about, what their concerns are and how they feel, especially for like, like working mothers, especially right now, are having a hard time because they're trying to juggle the kids, and working dads too, especially the kids going through virtual schooling. Thank goodness school's over for me. It ended last week, but that was a struggle. And our summer camps open in your area. It's like really having open communication and transparency within your organization, and just say, look, this is where we're at. This is what we need to do in order to keep more people on, and just be open.
Yeah. And I think I think his question too about, we had to make some cuts early on in late March. And, what we tried to do is make sure that before it happened, we made sure that we had access to all the details that someone would need from like the unemployment in their local market. So whether they were in New York, New Jersey, Georgia, wherever it was that they had access. And I think the other thing that we did, and so what we tried to do, in particular, is we moved some people to halftime, and we said, look, based on demand, like this is what we have to do, because we didn't want to let go of, as many people. And so I feel like that's the move that most organizations could try to make, is saying, look, right now we can't afford to keep you on at full time. Now we can afford to keep you on at halftime, but we also want to be respectful of your, what you need to do as a business. And I think too, though, it's, his second question here, which is being more employee centric. Right now we live in a world of, most people are employees at will. And, I think we've got a chicken and egg problem right now where the reason that employees' tenure is so short is that we're continuing to invest less in training and onboarding. There used to be training and onboarding plans for salespeople that's like 6 months long. But I think companies now are hesitant to do that because churn is so bad, but churn is so bad because we're not training and onboarding. Like, I feel like we're kind of in this loop around how we treat our people, especially in sales and marketing, where we're investing less in them up front and they're leaving sooner because they're not feeling invested in. They're not just leaving for another 5 or 10 grand. That's not what it is, or 20 grand. They're leaving because they don't see a career path. And so I don't know how you see that, but that feels like the issue to me is that companies, you got to just invest in your people. And if they leave, they leave, and they'll leave with a good taste in their mouth, hopefully. But as a company, all I can do is try to invest in the experience that people have. And that's really all that I can do as someone, as an employer. What about Jen? What have you seen work really well in your career, or what have you seen as a leader, in being more employee centric, like what's worked for you?
I think, the concept of always be caring, back in the day, it was the always be closing, always be caring. If you care about your customers, you care about your employees, it's that feeling where the employee knows that you care, whether that's by investing in that personal development, by making sure that they're doing okay. It's, bring your heart into it, lead with heart. I think that's the important thing. I mean, and, I find with a lot of leaders, some of the best leaders I had, like the most amazing leaders, were always able to own something if they did something not quite right. Maybe I was wrong about that, and just own it and just say, hey, sorry. And it's perfectly okay because nobody is perfect. But if you're the type of leader who's going to be up there and say, I'm right. And when everybody knows, maybe you're not so right. And not own it, you're just doing damage to yourself. So, I mean, I think that the caring and the feeling, just like with the customer experience, it's the same thing. Do you care? Do you have any empathy there? Same thing with employees. You've got to really be invested in their success and bring a servant leader mindset to it of I'm here to make you successful, which is going to make the company successful. Yeah. And we're in it together.
That's right. And even, I mean, that's the only mindset to have, Jen, I agree. I think it's the only mindset to have, whether someone's not bought in or not. It doesn't help, anything to not buy in back and try to invest what you can, Mm-hmm. And so I hear you on that. So I hope that's helpful for those of you who are, again, kind of more on the employer side. But I think that these are the types of things that, we talk a lot about, but also are a key part of this, that people don't feel ownership in their part of the revenue, or they don't have, they don't feel like there's a relationship between groups. That also causes some of this. So Jen Roberts, and then I want to transition and talk a little bit about the sales to CS issue. So this will be my last kind of marketing sales. How do you translate the strategy of combining sales and marketing to reduce churn? What does that look like tactically? So we talked about a little bit of it. I think Jen, just to paraphrase you, one thing you said was around understanding the features that are maybe underutilized but solve problems, right? And I think that was a big one. What else do you feel like? And Jennifer, that goes from talking to current customers and talking to potential customers about their pain points and their issues and understanding the buyer. And so what else? What else do you think you can do tactically if you're in marketing or in sales to actually have marketing help reduce churn?
Yeah, just to have more engagement. So the sequences sales development are using on your prospects, right? What kind of sequences and tactical value things can you provide on a sequential, regular basis to keep your audience engaged. And I'm talking about areas where you can provide value, whether it's on the industry, whether it's like you mentioned on the, the actual use of the product, but also on things that are happening. Like, if you're depending on what type of business you are, if you're in community association management or something, what's important to that particular industry that you're working in, and why are you, what are some of the key tips that you have for your customers to be successful? So, I mean, taking it a step further beyond you and really focusing on your industry.
All right, I like that. So again, it's not, so it sounds like there's a mix of industry in there as well too, of like the industry that your customers buy into or fall into.
Well, yeah. And then anything else from a leadership standpoint that you think your customers would find useful. If you're selling to CIOs, what would a CIO find useful, right? There's a whole host of things that are, not the same things that maybe, your folks in marketing are like. It's really about putting the perspective of the person that you're reaching out to and making sure that whatever you provide is of value to them, not necessarily what you think might be of value. I mean, there's a lot of value in just really spending time with your customers and say, hey, if I really wanted to provide some value to you over our relationship, what are the kinds of things you would like to see from me? And they'll tell you, that's the best source.
Yeah, and I think if maybe I'll borrow an idea from what you said for a tactical, is you're probably producing a lot of top of funnel content that you could just around ebooks or one-sheeters, and think about ways that you could repurpose those. Could you repurpose it to be more customer centric? Could you do a webinar that involves one of your customers and isn't just about new business, it's about like feature discovery or something? So I love that idea. I love that idea of trying to loop in more and more like those individuals and loop in your current customers or utilize the content you already have to be able to like be more applicable to the current customer use case, like versus like complete net new. So, all right. And look, I mean, you were a sales development leader. So this one, Taryn Rawat asks, if we're targeting a new geography, which approach should we think about first, inbound or outbound selling? New geography, inbound or outbound? How would you, and again, the answer might be it's, both, but how would you think about that? Someone who's coming into a new idea, like what that would look like?
Yeah, no, I'd first look at what I had that was inbound and everyone in that geography and whether there were any similarities there, right? Whether I've been able to create any traction with any of them. If not, I would go outbound and I would look at any local associations that tied into that particular industry. So if it was a tech space, right, you look for, let's say it's the state of Florida, the Florida Association of, technology, whatever, and just try to see what they're talking about. And when I do my outreach, cater it to some of the challenges that you see on those, like those articles and things that will be of value to them. So, really digging deep, of course, good data. Everything starts with good data, right? Good phone numbers, good emails, and then do the approach. But I would map it all out too. I would, I'm a firm believer in a playbook. So if you start writing out your strategy and it works well, then you go, okay, this is the strategy for next time. Or you can identify those things that, okay, that particular email and that one sequence just like crapped out. So maybe I need to change that one. And that's a good way of just, as you're taking on one geographic area to the next, of just identifying those things that work best.
Okay. And so what do you think? So whether it's inbound or outbound, you're using data, you're making sure you have clean data so then you can actually analyze the data. To me, it's a both, meaning inbound, starts with the brand stuff, right? Like, are you posting, if you're in B2B, are you posting on LinkedIn? Are you creating buyer communities? I think there's a lot of opportunities right now for people to focus on inbound. So the answer is both, and let the data guide you. That inbound is a long play. If you're doing organic, it takes months and years. So just starting a little bit with inbound now, creating content for your industry, getting active around specific topics on LinkedIn, those things take time. And so to me, it's like, and then if you don't have the time, then you've got to focus on outbound on your day-to-day, but every day you're putting in work that's going to generate, inbound, whether it's like, PR related activities or whatever that might look like. All right. So let's talk about maybe the transitions from sales development to sales. Like, what are some best practices for companies between the sales development and the sales process to, optimize that process for both, conversion and for buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like from the marketing to sales development, you need to have a feedback loop and do audits and really understand, if someone is not getting into the pipeline, why are they not getting it? Is it speed? Do they need to get to the account executive faster? Whether it makes sense to maybe have sales development do discovery calls. Like
Right.
At one organization I worked with, we had the sales development team do discovery calls. It took a lot of buy-in from account executives, but we were able to reduce that sales cycle by 50%. Now that's huge. We also added like hot passes where if someone was going to be ready within like a 30-day period, they went right to an account executive, and they would have to understand.
Did they get on the phone immediately? Were they like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, no, it went first account executive available would take the call. And, we actually, like with that particular organization, we had 1-day closes. Just, that's it. We're done. And so what that means for your sales cycle is huge, but you have to have that back and forth. And as a sales development manager, really, you've got to really listen to your sales development managers, right? Because they're the ones who's looking at it the most closely, because everyone in sales development is going to be measured on either what closes or at least what gets into the pipeline, right? So that's where their focus is. Whereas, the sales director, sales manager, VP of sales sometimes is just really lasered in on what's in the pipeline. But that gap in between is crucial and so important. I mean, you can literally lose millions of dollars out of that one little spot. So, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah. And so I think, again, it goes back to just like looking at what's the right experience for both sides, not like how we've always done it, which is, I think, sometimes what we fall back to or how we did it in our last role. And the one thing I'd add is that, sales development needs to tee up sales for success. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to give you, I wrote a post about this maybe a week and a half ago. I wrote a script, which is the script that every SDR should use. And the script is very simple. When you're ending a call, you should say, great, Jen, I really enjoyed this conversation. Or even if it's an email, I really enjoyed this conversation. Based on what you told me and that you're in this part of finance, I'm going to pair you up with Tim Henderson. Tim has clients like this. Tim knows this world a lot. In the meantime, I'm going to set up a 20-minute meeting with Tim, and I'm going to talk him through the details of our conversation to make sure he's up to speed. He probably will ask some follow-up questions to go a little bit deeper, and then I'll make sure that he's prepared to talk about these 3 things. How does that sound, Jen? And then Jen is like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. So like, you don't have to make the handoff process as shitty as it is by just tee up the next person. It takes 25 seconds. Versus like, okay, great, I'm going to have you talk to Tim, and Tim's going to talk you through a demo. Yeah, I'm sure then Jen's like, shit, I'm going to answer the same questions again. So I really feel like with just some scripting, we can actually solve some of this for our customers. But you got to have a little bit of scripting. You got to have that buyer mindset, So it sounds like to me, it's like looking at who should take the discovery, my advice around like the messaging, and then thinking about, again, like the sales cycle as a whole, what happens next? Can we accelerate all of this? I'm a big fan. I'm really starting to think for more and more organizations, the inbound SDR role needs to go away. That buyers need, like, I'm coming inbound requesting a demo. BANT is about you, Medic is about you. It's like, you want the information. And like, look, I'm a buyer. I said, I want a demo. Like, I'm okay if I fall under this criteria, but I really feel like if we're going to win, that there might be a scenario, just like you said, Jen, on a case-by-case basis where maybe a person should go straight through versus these stupid blockers that I feel like we just throw up because like that's just how it's supposed to be. I don't know. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that statement. The thing is, okay, so I've seen this in organizations where, a demo request is an SQL and it goes right to the account executive, but the account executive is not available. So the power of sales development is the speed, right? So when you're reaching out and you're an SDR, it's based on response time. Most of the companies I work with, there's 15-minute response time. And if you're going to be responded to within 15 minutes by an AE, that's fine. Go for it. Just don't lose it because someone beats you to the punch.
That's right.
Right. So I
agree with that 100. I agree with that 100%. I mean, there's actually a lot of data. We did an ebook on inbound lead conversion back in January, and there's stats around the first person. I think it's like the first person who responds to a customer request, I think it's like 50% or something more likely to get the deal. And so speed matters. And I'm telling you, whenever we go and work with companies, Jen, too, the easiest thing that we'll do is we'll look at their inbound funnel. And it like the SLA is with a lot of companies is like 24 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah, no, I know.
We're just going to move it to an hour or 30 minutes. And then immediately you see an uptick in conversions of 15, 20% immediate. So I agree. I think that's a really important call out. So we've got time for a couple more questions here. So we've answered this guy there. All right. Let's see here.
Man, you're frozen.
All right.
Just
so let's
talking in slow motion.
Well, Jen, I don't know what. So I'm going to take this next one. Nicholas Garibaldi. All right. Let's say that you need to reach out to C-suite level people only. Would you suggest interactions before sending them a connection request? Yes, is the answer, Nicholas. So what you do, here's the C-suite play for LinkedIn. Save a list in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Click on the tab that says posted in the last 30 days. Connect with everybody in that tab. Then once you hit connect, you then go to their comments or their activity, and you comment or like one of their posts. Wait 4 or 5 days. If they have another post, comment or like on that, assuming it's relevant. So the answer is yes, you should interact with content, try to do it a couple of times, and then follow up with someone directly. That's it. So I was just taking a question while we were waiting.
Yeah. No, you've got a great a sequence that I saw at that. You did a session with Scott Ingram that was really amazing on LinkedIn, where you shared like a sequence that included LinkedIn pretty heavily, which was pretty great.
It's just, it's so wild to me. People don't realize it that most people don't get any interactions on their posts. We only see our little sales bubble here, right? But most people get very little interaction. So you usually are like the first or second person to comment. So it's like they will, I'm telling you, and if an executive is posting and they post once a week and they consistently get no comments or all the comments are from employees, if you comment on 2 posts and it's not stupid and not like completely irrelevant, they'll remember you. And then you come in with the DM. So, all right, last question. So Jen, maybe the detail here, like what haven't we talked about? Like, what do you, like when you think about sales and marketing? So I'm going to pose the last question to you. When you think about this customer journey or these parts of it, we talked a little bit about this before we went live. What haven't we talked about? Like, what are some of the things and challenges you see for the rest of this year and as we look forward?
Well, as we look at the rest of this year and you're looking at revenue operations, right? A lot of the information that's out there, a lot of the models are based on really large organizations. And that doesn't mean that you can't use some of these methodologies for like medium, even small size businesses. And there are little things that you can do to make it a lot more customer centric, buyer centric, so that you're optimizing your results really about, if you're just like with like Amazon, okay, Amazon rules the world now. They did that by being very buyer centric. So how can you and your organization be buyer centric with your data, your process, everything around your technology, and in some cases even simplifying. There are cases where I talked to an organization and they're using so many different softwares, and some of those things they do the same thing. like there's no point or rhyme or reason to it. And so part of looking at it holistically is really where can you simplify while improving customer experience. That will reduce the churn, reduce your expenses if you're actually going to eliminate some things that are really not needed, right? Maybe you save an SDR that way. We're all happy.
I love that. I mean, again, it's about simplifying in most cases. It's about versus overcomplicating it. And I think that's a really good point for a lot of people. So if you're thinking about, what you should do or how to simplify or how to do it, it's just, think about this from both sides. What do we want as an organization? And then what does our customer want or expect from us? And I think like that example you gave about implementing a hot handoff because there was a possibility for a one-call close. And that just comes from just, not just being in the day-to-day all the time, taking a step back. And my philosophy and my thought is that we as a sales organizations, we've got to move to more of what I think a marketing mindset, which is constant optimization. Sales, we tend to build an outbound process and then we make some tweaks here or there. We're not optimizing in real time. Same with the sales playbook. We build a sales playbook, and the thing sits there for 6 to 12 months, and then we think about making changes. The first version of your sales playbook is not going to be optimized. It's going to be okay. And so, Jen, what are this may be actually a follow-up for you. What do you feel like if you're a growing organization, small and medium business, what are some of the core elements that someone could go look at right now that would drive effectiveness or efficiency, upgrades in their business? What would you tell them like the top, 1, 2, 3 areas would be?
Yeah, I think the top one would be response time, 100%. I mean, everyone I talk to, we're always talking about response time first.
Yeah.
The second would be that handoff between SDR and account executive and really doing a deep audit into what's happened with those appointments and identifying, those places where, something is sort of falling through the cracks and looking for patterns. Because as soon as you can identify a pattern, then you can use that as a lever to increase your results. And then looking at velocity. So looking at your pipeline velocity where you're looking, okay, so this is my average sales cycle and these are the average number of days at each stage. So what is falling outside? If 30 to 70% of your pipeline is sort of out of stage, like it's not following a norm, and we're talking about a norm maybe like, for a period of time, then you need to identify what is holding up those stages. Maybe it's content. Maybe it's like that one person in finance that you have a hard time getting buy-in when you're at the end of, the negotiation stage. And maybe it's one video to that person that's going to propel you forward. So like looking for those patterns, whether it's in the velocity, whether it's, from the SDR to the AE, or really understanding, what your response time and the MQL definition, whether it's really right, whether everyone really agrees on what that means and actively listening to everyone on the team on their perspective on that.
I love that. It's so spot on. Not enough companies look at their sales cycle in those stages. And then the crazier part is when you look at it at the individual level, that each person has their own gaps in their ability. Like some people are stronger at this side. So I think a lot of times we've got to take those charts that look really pretty in aggregate, but when you start to pinch in, they look like this. And like, I love that quick, 30 to 60% of your pipeline this is what your average age in stage is. But almost all these people fall out. Like there's smoke there, right? Where there's smoke, there's
something wrong there. If you look like this when you have like if you look at your last 15 closed deals and you go, okay, this is what it looks like, and you come up with a pattern, and then you look at your pipeline, you're like, oh crap, what is that? There's a predictable pattern to it.
No, yeah, not enough people do that. So I think that's like an important point to end on. So Jen, thank you. I appreciate you joining. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. We got pretty heavy in the beginning, but something that needed to be talked about for sure. And, hopefully all of you, had some big takeaways, from a tactic standpoint, from a strategic standpoint, and you know, kind of some thoughts and ways to move forward. So Jen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we will see everyone next Monday at the same time. Thanks all.
Okay.